Hey ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. As always, it is Nick here, back with your daily crypto news and analysis. And today we are going to be talking about Ripple and XRP, as well as the vast majority of crypto and finance. And I do think that everyone is going to want to stick around until the end of this video, because we have a lot of interesting things to talk about, especially within the dollar. I do believe that the US dollar is collapsing, and I actually think that we are about to see a major collapse on the US dollar very soon. But in the short term, I have been looking at the 3-day. As you guys do see, we have been trailing in a downtrend. But the thing is that we are squeezing between the 200 and also the 10 3-day EMA, that yellow line, and also this blue line. Usually squeezes tend to cause volatile price action to either the upside or the downside. I'm watching this very closely because this could ultimately push the risk on assets into a major run, meaning crypto could ultimately go on a bull run, which will surprise a lot of people because they are still waiting on the 4-year cycle. They're still waiting on Bitcoin halving and all that kind of nonsense. But I still have a goal in mind for the US dollar, and that is retesting that. Ultimately, it's on the weekly as well. But this 200 weekly EMA. And that's all the way down here at around roughly 99. This has been sort of flattening. I've been waiting around this level for a while, and it seems as though we are finally starting to see a lot more price action brewing here. I'm still waiting for this level to break on the weekly as well. We've just been kind of trading sideways here. I'm waiting for a big move, and I do think that that big move is going to be coming from the 3-day squeeze on these EMAs. But outside of the charts, there's a lot of things happening around de-dollarization, and we've been following this trend for so long on this channel now, but it's been starting to become a real big issue, especially for those that are in the US, including myself. But we do see more and more countries are doing trade settlement in their own currencies. De-dollarization is accelerating. Should we be concerned? And we do see 1,000 cuts, dollar in decline from China to Brazil to Ghana. And listen closely to this video.
We've got 3 announcements this week on the accelerating decline of the dollar, coming from China, Argentina, and the African gold producer, Ghana. First up, China announced they're now using more yuan than dollars in their cross-border payments. At this point, the yuan is now used in almost half of all of China's cross-border payments, for the first time edging out the US dollar at a 47% share. Note, the dollar share is down 2% from just a month ago, meaning China could be substantially free of the dollar in another couple years. Now, China is by far the world's largest exporter. It exports almost double what the US does. So, paired with other countries also getting out of the dollar, this is driving down dollar trade settlement worldwide. According to SWIFT, the global consortium of banks and financial firms that handles cross-border currency trades, the US dollar is now down to just 40% of world trade being settled in dollars. Now, that is a very large drop from the dollar's 52% share as recently as 2014. In fact, another couple years of this, and the dollar starts to approach America's actual share of world GDP of roughly 25%. In other words, if you get to 25%, you are no longer a reserve currency, at least not for trade. You're just doing at-home stuff. Next up, Argentina announced it's shifting the yuan for Chinese imports. Now, that's expected to total about $10 billion per year going forward. In fact, Argentina is turning from the dollar more broadly, running down its dollar reserves and replacing them with Chinese yuan. Just last November, Argentina announced a fresh $5 billion swap. That's a loan between central banks. Now, for perspective, China is already Argentina's second largest trading partner, and Argentina is the second biggest economy in South America after Brazil, which, oddly enough, also recently announced it's switching to yuan. In fact, last month, Brazil reported that the yuan passed the euro to become the number 2 currency in Brazil's foreign exchange reserves. By the way, as recently as 2018, Brazil had 0 Chinese yuan. And also note, Brazil still holds about 250 billion US dollars, so there is a long ways down if they keep at it. Finally, the country of Ghana, the 6th largest gold producer in the world, is now requiring gold miners to sell 20% of their gold to the government, which it will then use to pay for imported oil rather than chasing dollars that could be rug pulled at any moment. This kind of moving towards hard assets is very similar to what Russia did last year with its own gold producers, and it suggests a new trend for developing countries to quickly exit the dollar. In fact, the president of the seventh largest gold producer, Indonesia, has already said he wants out of the dollar. He literally said, quote, "Look what happened to Russia." Note, number 3 gold producer, Russia, number 12, South Africa, and number 14, Brazil, are already part of BRICS, while other major gold producers like Peru, Kazakhstan, and Sudan may be next. It was once unthinkable that the U.S. would lose dominance in manufacturing, and yet our politicians made it happen via death by 1,000 cuts. And so, once again, our leaders turned to destroying, cut by self-inflicted cut, what it took generations to build. All right, we'll be watching. See you next time.
And this is what we have been watching for quite some time, because this is accelerating. This is moving very, very fast, and it's becoming a very big issue. Just what he said in the beginning of that video alone, talking about, China's cross-border payments. Yeah, cross-border payments is moving very fast in yuan instead of the US dollar. The US dollar as a once extremely large currency and the world reserve currency that was utilized everywhere in over 60% plus transactions and trade transactions has now fallen to significant lows. We do see over here de-dollarization escalation, hashtag got gold from ITM trading. And we do see Chinese yuan overtakes the US dollar as the most used currency in China's cross-border transactions for the first time in history. Yuan share rose to a record high of 48%, up from nearly 0 in 2010. This is massive. The US share declined to 47%, down from 83% over the same period. Wow. And yeah, this is a huge deal, and this is actually a major problem that we are seeing in the US. I do think that everyone should be watching these metrics closely, because these are warning signs to get the hell away from the US dollar. And I don't mean that in a sense of, hey, let's panic and let's go to the bank, get all of our money out so that we can throw it into the wind on anything possible. No, I think that there should be a strategic way to do this. A lot of people are actually utilizing money market funds, which I've been reporting on recently, with over $5.21 trillion into these things. This is where a lot of people are parking their dollars currently. They're moving away from the banks and they're throwing it into money market funds. And this money is going to push into something else. I do think that gold, silver, and crypto is going to be their choice. And the simple reasoning behind all of this is because the US dollar as a currency is failing. The US dollar itself is also being massively inflated. So as we really kind of look at the US dollar, it's losing its purchasing power. It's losing its value. And who the hell wants to park their money in a bank account, losing a massive amount of money per year because of inflation? We recently just seen, like I said, the debt ceiling being raised. With that, we also look at the Treasury and how they want to print another $18 trillion in the next 7 years. This is only going to continue to accelerate the push away from the US dollar. And ultimately, guess what? Well, we are going to be having a new reserve currency. Once we do see that new reserve currency take over, well, it's goodbye US dollar. It's hello whatever that currency is. And the thing is that this is moving very fast. We do see over here, we learned this morning that the yuan surpassed the dollar as the primary currency for cross-border transactions in China. This is happening right as China scales up the digital yuan. Do you think this is a coincidence? I think not. Yes, the age of de-dollarization is here, but the age of digitization is also here. In my opinion, and I have said this many times on this channel, distributed ledger technology and crypto itself. Because yes, there's DLTs that roam around crypto. There's a ton of them. Most of them are considered DLTs anyways, but there's also other projects in this space that aren't necessarily considered DLT. But nonetheless, I do think that this asset class and DLT will become the infrastructure of the new financial system. I've talked about why. I've talked about the efficiencies that could be boasted from this as well. We already started to see the IMF, the BIS. We've seen central bankers themselves also touting crypto and DLT for its efficiencies around payments and payment technology. I do think that we are seeing the age of digitization, but also the age of de-dollarization before our eyes. I also think that fiat currencies, I think that the cracks are showing. I think that fiat currency has failed. And the main reason behind it failing is Well, if you put enough control in the hands of central bankers, well, greed runs deep, and also power and control really shows. And that's the problem that has arose in recent years, even going all the way back too. I mean, like, it's not just recently, it's well over the last century. I mean, since the inception of the Fed, we have seen the US dollar as a currency completely erode. So as we really kind of look at this, yeah, it's questionable on where we go next. But in my opinion, I do believe that de-dollarization and digitization is going to be the next area of focus. And in fact, it's already been a focus on this channel for well over a year now. And what do you see over here? Brazil president says he supports creating a new currency for BRICS nations to trade with. As I've said, like, we continue to see these new currencies coming up. The BRICS have been creating gold-backed currencies, digital currencies as well. And also, we've also seen Russia pushing towards crypto, utilizing crypto for trade and cross-border transaction settlement as well. I mean, this is only going to continue to accelerate. The push towards digitization is a huge deal. We do see over here, just in Argentina to pay for imports in Chinese yuan, ditching the US dollar. And remember what I just said about Argentina. The IMF actually said that, listen, Argentina needs to cut ties altogether to crypto unless they want to get bailed out. Because again, like, this is the problem that we see around the US dollar and even those that are back in the US dollar, like the IMF. They push their agenda and they utilize financial weapons. They are weaponizing the US dollar. Listen, first off, we've been weaponizing the US dollar forever now. Now nations are seeing it. Now nations are pushing away from it because of that. Over here from ITM Trading, actually, they said everybody now knows if you don't do what we want, we will sanction you and we will cut you out of the global system. This is a big problem, right? And I've said it, like, this is the number one issue that we have around the US is that we rely too much on the dollar as a financial weapon to control everyone outside of the US. And now these nations understand this. These nations see this and they are done with it. They are tired of it. Listen closely to this video.
In 2022, the US dollar's share as a global reserve currency fell at 10 times the average pace of the past 20 years. 10 times the average pace. The dollar suffered a stunning collapse in 2022 in its market share as a reserve currency, presumably due to its muscular use of sanctions. Exceptional actions taken by the U.S. and its allies against Russia have startled large reserve holding countries, most of which are from the global south. But it was really eye-opening and not the first time that the U.S. has used their global payment system, the SWIFT, to put sanctions against a country. But what everybody now knows is if you don't do what we want, we will sanction you. We will cut you out of the global system. So we've seen a lot of countries that have gravitated to creating their own, and we're going to get into that in just a couple seconds. But this is a stunning collapse because it dropped from 73% in 2001. So that's already when the Fed started buying back the treasuries really slowly and super quietly, but 73% at that time to about 55% in 2021. And in 2022, it tumbled to 47% of the total global reserves. We're watching this in real time.
So yeah, I mean, that is a huge deal. I mean, if we actually look at that, 73% in 2001 to 55% in 2021, and then all of a sudden in 2022, 1 year later, this is 1 year later, 47%. It dropped 8% in 1 year. That is a huge metric. That is a massive drop in just 1 year. And like I said, this is just going to continue to go on and on and on. This is a major collapse of a currency. And even the ECB president, Christine Lagarde, was talking about de-dollarization. Reserve currency status should be no longer taken for granted. Check this out. All this could create opportunities for certain countries seeking to reduce their dependency on the Western payment system and currency frameworks. These developments do not point to an imminent loss of dominance for the US dollar or for the euro. So far, the data does not show or do not show substantial changes in the use of international currencies. Nonetheless, she admitted that the data does suggest that international currency status should be no longer taken for granted and that we should be really attentive to the currency in which trade transactions are organized. A growing number of countries are using local currencies for trade transactions or settlements instead of the US dollar. In addition, the BRICS nations are reportedly creating a new type of currency that will further reduce their dependence on the US dollar. Yeah, the end of the US dollar is essentially here. And, even Indonesia is following the BRICS de-dollarization lead and shifting away from the US dollar. And also, like I said, Russia is definitely taking advantage of what's happening around the US dollar, and they are already creating a new payment system that will allow unrestricted use of cryptocurrency in cross-border payments, which I've mentioned. I've already mentioned this in a video, but I brought it back up because this is a huge deal. We're seeing a tech race. We are seeing a financial race, but this is all surrounding a massive financial war that's been brewing for years and years and years, and I mean decades. So now I ask all of you, what do you believe happens next? Will we see digital-based systems rising? Will we see the US tapping into crypto to utilize the efficiencies? Because a lot of people think that, oh, well, crypto's nothing, crypto's this, crypto's that. Crypto could ultimately not only complement the traditional system, but really usher us into the digital age and allow for efficiencies to be utilized to not only help the dollar, but also benefit the US and actually help retain reserve status. So why wouldn't they utilize crypto? But I also worry that they are going to try to push for a CBDC, which I've talked about as well. I don't believe that a CBDC is going to benefit us too much, though. I think that we really need to tap into the actual power behind crypto and utilize it for cross-border payments and create a cross-border payment mechanism that could allow for instant settlement, liquidity sourcing, and also there's also a few other things that are tied to that system, which could ultimately be not only just liquidity sourcing and instant settlement, but low-cost fees, transparency. There is so many incredible efficiencies that could be allowed through a cross-border payment mechanism sourced through crypto. And with all that in mind, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys did, definitely leave a like, subscribe, turn notifications on because of more free content. You guys are more than welcome to follow me on Twitter and join the free Discord in the description below. So it's up to you all. Have a beautiful day or a beautiful night, wherever you guys are on this. Before this has been Nick. Peace out, guys.